I know we are running late, but yeah, that's the way it is. Some technicals go for a last run check. Sometimes people go missing. Sometimes something crops up that we are completely unaware of. So I present my apologies on behalf of everybody on the host end and ask for your patience. But till then, I thought let's have a fun round. I see so many people I like, worked with, have taught with. So if it's okay with all of you, I'd like to take a few quick feedback or a quick, round of these fast students. It's wonderful. It's been wonderful, wonderful, wonderful having you all here. It's been an amazing experience hosting something like Rajasthan Architecture for us. And today is the second day of our technical sessions. And we hope to put together a series of dialogue and understanding and getting to know our profession better through the topic that we have taken under as our theme, which is metamorphosis. As I said earlier, metamorphosis has changed and the perspective is varied. Every person has a different way to look at metamorphosis, to understand metamorphosis, and we architects obviously have our own viewpoints also individually. For those who went out to the Heritage Walk in the morning to Nahargarh, I hope you had a wonderful time. It's one of the best water walks and water management systems in our city. And I'm not sure if the team is still back yet, but if you people talk to them, if you've missed it, please do talk to them because it is a wonderful, wonderful experience. And if possible, do come back so we can take you back there if you've missed it this time. Hi, I'm Architect Preeti Agrawal, Member Executive Committee, IA Rajasthan Chapter, hosting you all today for today's session. And today's keynote session is no less than yesterday's. Before I go forward, I would now like to call upon our chapter chairperson, Architect Tushar Sogani, to come and present his welcome note for today.
Good morning, everyone. I think now we're going to celebrate architecture today in the morning, as I said, in the evening, again, the festival. So thanks, Architect Marina, who's come all the way from Bangladesh, Dhaka, to grace this festival. And we are honored you are here. And, people were so excited. And I was like keeping a check on your visa regularly, because visa is something, which give a gate pass in one's country. So because of this pandemic, you won't believe we have lost many speakers just because of this visa issues, And I'm proudly, here to mention you that this time we were almost done with Pakistan. And that was one of our dream. Our senior, our past president, Divikosh, has worked hard in the past also, But this time we were very close because here one of the government official in Rajasthan, a senior IAS, he said, no, I am going to invite as my personal guest. If a government official invites, I think embassy do not have the courage to stop it. But because of certain reasons, they also couldn't make it. And the reason I'm here is because with the support of you all, I really wanted to take this festival in times to come. Jaipur Architecture Festival, our dream is to make it parallel to Jaipur Literature Festival, where the people are very excited to come, excited to listen, speak, and deliberate. So we are having a teething problem. This is our first flagship event, and I think in times to come, we'll definitely take this forward with support of you all. So today, as Preeti mentioned, we had a wonderful heritage walk in the Royal Fort of Nahargarh. Kavita, who actually curated this walk, taught that what was the relevance of aqua channels, the water channels, which was there in those times. So I think this basic festival was to the vernacular wisdom. This is what we intend to. I know it's very difficult to replicate in the same fashion it had been done in those times, but at least we can learn certain principles, which were there. So today, I know you will be listening to architect Marina Tabassum just in a short while. And today, in Hall A, we have got a session, and the theme of this session is adding green to the sands. Because, we are in a sandy soil. We want to create green buildings, and we already had those in past, right from 200, 300 years way back. So we want to learn from them how we can make those green buildings in the present era. The second session, which actually I tell you media is after that, they even called me in the morning that we want to cover this session. And that session is Heritage Under Threat. Because we are UNESCO site, world site, and many a times when it has been inscribed for the first time to a city, it's always in checkpoints and a lot of jeopardy. So Heritage Under Threat is one. Kamalika is going to moderate that. So all the best to you and all the speakers, K.T. Ravindran sir and everyone. So after that, I thought, why we always listen from architects only? Why not the people like Alka Pandey, who's an art historian? We should learn their viewpoint also. So Alka Pandey always speaks at Jaipur Literature Festival, and she very gracefully accepted our proposal. So she's going to speak in the expert speaks. And in the master speaks, we have none other than architect Sanjay Mohe. Thank you, sir, for being here. People are very desperate to listen to you. Post-lunch, Hall A, we are having evaluation of inherited perception. When me and my team were curating, I had a chance to speak to Sandeep Bhai. He's so, with all the excitement, he said, I'm going to speak on this, Because this shows that every one of us actually understand the serenity of our legacy. I think this is what. And the last session, again, very important. City, protest, and social changes. When this came to our mind, it reminded me of creating certain structures in the walled city of Jaipur in the name of urbanization, in the name of metro station, which was kind of odd. So it was strange, but there was a protest. And when I was passing to the Marine Drive in Mumbai, I really thought why this area is being reclaimed, for what reasons. So somehow I heard that, architect Rahul Kadri, is he here? Yeah. So I came to know that he, wrote a lot against that, if I'm not wrong, sir. He raised his voice. He was like a whistleblower. So this is what this session is going to talk about. And none other than Narsimhan, Naresh, whom I always hear after the dinner, before the dinner, and after the evening, or a glass of wine or a whiskey. I think he was also a whistleblower in the city of Bangalore. So, and last, many a times we architects, come up with good projects, but we are very bad in documenting them. Because, sometimes we don't believe in self-glorification. We just insist on the good work, hard work. So we thought, since Apurva is there with us, Apurva, are you there? Apurva is there. So Apurva is doing a fantastic job in architecture journalism. So I think all of us should know how to document our work. It's very important. And to complement her journalism, we have Mr. Sebastian, who is an architectural photographer. So both this thing is going to balance. And after that, last itinerary, academically speaking, is going to be a book launch written by architect Sanjeev Vidyarthi, who's come all the way from US, Megha Mathur from my city, Gaurav Bhatnagar, and Rajan Bhatt. So they have written a book called Hadra under the mentorship of Rahul Mehrotra, right? So They're going to just do a soft launch for that. And in the evening, we'll have validity function. As Vivek, just told us, we need to felicitate our sponsors. Without that, you, me, were not able to interact, We have to acknowledge them. So we'll have a validatory function in which one of them needs to, and in the evening, drink, dance, and dine. Thank you so very much for the rest of the day.
Thank you, Tushar, for that quick run about what's to be expected for the day. It is time always to extend our gratitude and thanks to the sponsors who make it possible for all of us to be sitting here, to be able to talk to each other without the commerce impacting our thoughts. And it is very important that we put our hands together for all our sponsors, and especially Daikin, our gold partner, who I now invite Mr. Arun Vadhavan, the branch operational manager, to the podium to come and make his presentation. A round of applause for Mr. Arun Vadhavan, branch operational manager, Daikin, representing Daikin, our gold partner.
Namaste. Good morning. So first of all, let me thank everybody, and especially the organizers who have made this event possible. I think I am witness to the energy, what we are witnessing almost after 3 years' time. Today, again, another proud moment for me. I am standing in front of the perfectionist. Whatever we have seen in the past, the heritage, present, and the future, what we are going to witness, I think is all because of you. So thank you all. Thank you again. And thank you, Tushar Bhai, for making this event possible. I think everybody from Jaipur, Rajasthan, and India, and apart from, beyond India, I think has made it possible. Thank you, everybody, for giving us an opportunity to be a part of this event and giving us opportunity to serve you. So my presentation is nothing, I think, I'm not talking about anything technical here. It's just a brushing around, because I personally believe you can't teach the masters. So I think I'll just take you to a synopsis of, the Daikin overall global overview. This is what, we are as Daikin, founded in 1924. So after 2 years, we are touching 100 years. Globally, we have almost 100 plus factories. This is the most advanced air conditioner manufacturing, setups we have worldwide. We are working towards, the environment, the energy. I think Daikin India, we are having the entire manufacturing presence right now in Rajasthan. So I think the proud square movement for Daikin to be here. This is a quick, synopsis again. We have got, almost now 8,500, channel partners serving across country in terms of, helping the customers, you people, in terms of deliveries, in terms of post-deliveries, in terms of, keeping the machines running in the right manner. This is our Nimrana facility. Nimrana is located in between Jaipur-Delhi highway. Almost, it's a Japanese zone, almost midway, you can say, 130 kilometers from Jaipur. So entire manufacturing facility, 2 factories are here. These are the production capacities we have currently. So again, we have the training center. In the factory, we have a large R&D center, the training center, facilities for people to be trained. This is another, R&D center I'm talking about. It's a proud moment for Daikin. We have received the Global Cooling Prize this year only. So I think strength meets style. That's what we have been working towards now, as the demands have come up, as what people are looking for, more innovative products in terms of style, aesthetics, and at the same time deliveries. These are some product range what we have. I think most of you are aware. So that's what we are completely manufacturing in India. The chillers also we have started manufacturing in Nimrana factory itself. In control systems now we are working on IOTA. So possibly, that's the future what we are thinking about, what we are talking about. So this is HFC32, that's ozone guard from Daikin. So that's where we have been working again. I think this is one area where we've been working. Again, it's a complexity for all of us. There are challenges for all of us when we go for actual installations. We have been working around in terms of piping, which this was the conventional method, and now we have migrated ourselves to the brazing-free, I would say. Normally, these are the methods of brazing-free installations, where we call it the DGT joint. So you no need to have the brazing system. And, this is where we work upon, where to join the machines indoor, outdoors, so where the header packs are given, making it more easier for installations and less complex, and then less, less, complications are in the building itself. So these are the splitters what we normally use. So I think the journey to agenda, I always believe, what we have received from the past, we need to give back to the future. That's what we all should work upon. Secondly, beyond manufacturing, we are working on social cause. I would just like to touch upon a small video to be played. But before that, I think we have already opened a very, very large skill development, institute close to our factory in Nimrana, where we committed to train more than 2,000 students every year, because this industry needs people at a higher skill levels. Until unless we don't have that, we will not be able to deliver, or we will not be able to demand what we are actually looking for. Thank you so much. I just request, to play this small video. Thank you all.
हल्का हल्का
मुझे दे
दूर चमके हल्का हल्का दूर चमके भी तेरे बचपन
क्या कर रही है मोड़ी
अपनी
घर का काम दे
उलझनों में खोए रे मन
आजा मोड़ी
बिगाड़ ले मोड़ी है लोग क्या कहेंगे
हल्का हल्का दूर चमके भी तेरे बचपन तितलिया सहमी हुई ढूंढने जो अपनी मंजिलों में खो गई।
मुझे लड़का बनना है मुझे भी स्कूल जाना है
चल बेटा
जागृति अब आप पढ़ो
अ से अनार आ से आप छोटी ई से इमली ई से ईख ए से एरी
जेता है कुमारी जागृति।
1
आई गई हमारी मोड़ी जागृति।
जय मोड़ी, अपने साथ की चल के लाई चाय बना ले।
पापा, मुझे नहीं करनी शादी।
गई थी तेरे ते बेलन वाले हाथन में कलम ना सुहाए, लोग क्या कहेंगे?
उठी फिर वो लहरों से बहती नैया बचपन की
जागृति,
दूर आई छोड़ किनारे।
मोड़ी जी तो चाहे कि तू भी खूब पढ़े लिखे, लेकिन जे बहुत छोटी है तुम्हारे बाप की, और तुम्हारे भाई को पढ़ाना भी जरूरी है।
साथ यादों की बुने डोर
जागृति, जागृति, अब तू भी आगे पढ़ सकती है।
सहारा।
अरे सुन तो, ये बहुत ही अच्छा कॉलेज है।
इसमें क्या फायदा? पैसे तो इसमें भी देने पड़ेंगे।
ले, अपनी आंखों से खुद पढ़ ले। यहाँ सिर्फ प्रतिभाएं देखी जाती है, पैसा नहीं। जापान और इंडिया के आपसी सहयोग डेक्कन गए हुए हैं।
पापा, पापा, पढ़ सकती हूँ। हमारे सपनों को अब डेक्कन साकार करेंगे। सीखेंगे भी दुनिया की सबसे बढ़िया जापानी तकनीक से। हाँ कर दो प्लीज।
अब चलना।
देखो उड़ी रे देखो उड़ी रे उड़ गई मंचली। देखो उड़ी रे देखो उड़ी रे उड़ गई मंचली। देखो उड़ी रे लेके सपने धुंधले उड़ गई मंचली। देखो उड़ी रे लेके ख्वाबों के ये मेरे उड़ गई मंचली।
जब हम मर जाए हैं तब पंखा सही होए।
देखो उड़ी रे देखो उड़ी रे उड़ गई मंचली।
अम्मा, लोग क्या बोली हैं? लोग बोली हैं मोड़ी भी वरदान होवे, तो हमारी जागृति हमारा वरदान है।
उड़ गई मंचली।
On behalf of society, we salute our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji's vision on Skill India and Make in India. With this thought, allow me to introduce to you the Daikin Japanese Institute of Manufacturing Excellence, an institute born from the MOC signed between the Honorable PMs of India and Japan. We are very happy to announce the inception of our institute with an all-female batch, which shows Daikin's intent in driving the gender diversity in the society, and further our Prime Minister's efforts on Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao.
Thank you, and let me tell you, every inch of this video is the real truth. I have witnessed this while we were traveling to deep roots in Rajasthan, in Haryana, and before celebration, this video was prepared. So we request all of you to help us in this program. Let us know. I am personally taking care of this program wherever trainings are needed. Thank you all, and thank you, the organization.
Thank you, Mr. Vadhavan. Commendable initiative by Daikin. I think it deserves an extremely resounding sound of applause. Just once more. Please take it back to your company from us, Mr. Vadhavan. It's now time to carry forward. I now call upon Architect Gaurav Agarwal, IAA Chapter Treasurer, to introduce our keynote speaker for the day.
Thank you, Preeti. Namaste. Good morning, everyone. I hope you all must be having a fun time in this festival, Rajasthan Architectural Festival. It's been a really great experience every day to listen to you, to know what a fraternity is doing. Thank you so much. Let me introduce our keynote speaker of the session, architect Marina Tabassum. A Bangladeshi architect and educator, Marina Tabassum founded Dhaka-based Marina Tabassum Architects in 2005. In her work, Tabassum seeks to establish a language of architecture that is contemporary yet reflective, rooted to place, always against an ecological rubric containing climate, context, culture, and history. Her Beit ur Roof mosque, I am sorry ma'am if I have spelled it wrong, mosque is distinguished by its lack of popular mosque iconography, its emphasis on space and light, and its capacity to function not only as a place of worship, but also a refuge for the dense neighborhood on Dhaka's periphery. The portfolio of work withstanding Tabassum's practice remains conscious, contains size, undertaking a limited number of projects per year. Tabassum has taught in Harvard University Graduate School of Design, Technical University Delft, University of Texas, and Bengal Institute. She received honorary doctorate from Technical University of Munich. In addition to Aga Khan Award for Architecture, she has received many accolades, including Arnold W. Brunner Memorial Prize from the American Academy of Art and Letters, gold medals of the French Academy of Architecture, and Soane Medal in Architecture from UK. Tabassum chairs Foundation for Architecture and Community Equity, that is FACE, and Prokriti, Fair Trade Organization. She is a member of the steering committee of the Aga Khan Awards for the Architecture. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me with a round of applause to welcome architect Marina Tabassum.
Dame Zaha Hadid is said to have said this in a different setting. She said, there are 360 degrees, why stick to one? I'd like to translate this to viewpoint, and now welcome architect Marina Tabassum to present her 1 degree.
Thank you. Thanks. Should I go to the presenter's view? Review, slideshow, presenter's view. This one. Okay, so. Nope. Okay. But you're not getting the presenter's view. But okay, all right, no worries. Thank you so much for having me here. It's wonderful to be back in Jaipur, probably after 20 years or so. I haven't been here for a while. It's always wonderful to come to India. I feel so much loved and warmth that I feel from all the colleagues and peers that it really always feels wonderful to be back. And I was in Kerala in March, and then again here within a very short time. So the Indian embassy is really worried, calling me up, "Madam, why do you need to go to India so often?" And then this time they've given me a 1-year visa, which is quite nice. Okay, so basically, we have just come out of this 2 years of being grounded, staying home, trying to realize what went wrong and what we have done wrong. So I think it's nice to be back and to be meeting people, but at the same time, I think it's also important to remember and also to ponder and reflect upon what we've been doing and how now and where we are at the moment. And these are the two realities that I'm sure we all know. One is this rising temperature and all the climate-related issues that we are facing, the change in the climate and the sea level rise. There's so many issues that are there. And of course, the pandemic that has, taken over our lives for the last 2 years. And in many ways, our culture of consuming, over-extraction, overproduction, all of this that has created this imbalance. I think it's very important for us as architects because our industry does contribute enormously into the climate change and the carbon emissions. So it's very important for us to keep that in mind and to work accordingly. So in a way, shifting our focus from human in the center of everything to becoming more nature, environment in the center of everything. So basically, changing the balance in many ways. So I'm going to start with the projects that we've been pursuing in the last 2 years, especially during the pandemic time when most of our works were sort of going slow or some of the works even stopped. And that gave us a certain time to work on certain projects that I have always wanted to do, but was not always had the time because of the pressing need of other projects. And in a way, I think it's important for us, especially being in Bangladesh. I think the biggest contrast between Rajasthan and Bangladesh is water. Here you want to preserve it, and there we have plenty of it. And so I think that's where I think when I talk about water, you'll see what it is all about. And one of the major issues is, of course, the sea level rise for us, and as it's expected that we are expecting by 2050 about a 1 meter sea level rise, and which means, as you can see, the southern part of Bangladesh, especially the Sundarbans and all of that being inundated into the water. So those are pressing issues. I already see in the coastal areas how the biodiversity and the ecology is changing and really creating an effect on livelihood and how people have been affected by that. So Bangladesh, which is, as you all know, surrounded by India on 3 sides. You always draw the map of Bangladesh while drawing your own map. So basically, it's in the foothills of the Himalayas, and 3 major rivers, the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, and the Meghna, is converging into this place, which is the Bay of Bengal, flushing into it. And then while doing so, creating this land, which is 2/3 of it is actually progradation of the Ganges estuary and creating this area which we call home. And if you see on the other side where you only see the water, and it's a waterscape rather than a landscape, and you see the amount of rivers and the water bodies, there are different kinds of water bodies that we have. We have lakes and large wetlands. We have rivers, more than 700 rivers crisscrossing the entire network of Bangladesh. So water is our resource, water is also our life, and also everything is in the psyche of Bangladesh is about water. So this image that you see here, this is a NASA image of 20 years of movement of the water bodies. So basically the rivers constantly shapes and reshapes their ways. And while doing so, they erode the banks and create new sandbeds into their own existence, as you can see here, and which is in satellite looks like that. In the ground, it is something like that, where it's a very fragile, soft soil because it's an alluvium, and because of that reason, when we have, during the summer months, when the glacial water is coming down from the Himalayas, and also the rain that pours in, it erodes the banks as it's shaping and reshaping itself. And in effect, it has taken away or washed away many villages, small towns, and it's a constant effect. And with the climate change, as the temperature is rising, glacial water is coming down more. it has increased the effect in many ways. And so what it has done is it has rendered people landless, it has rendered people homeless. And one of our research in 2018, it was a commissioned research by the Sharjah Architecture Triennial, which we did, and we actually looked into these whole network and the geoformation and how this thing affects. So these are the sandbeds, which again comes up in the middle of the river, so in the riverbeds, new sort of accretions or land that forms, which is not really land. These are what in our language we call it chor. And chors are actually owned by the rivers. It's river in its own kind of a dynamic way. But when you trade on it, we call it land. And that's the dichotomy, or that's the notion where we came into a difficult situation. So I'm not going to go very deep into it, but just to show you how the Brahmaputra's, over there in the map, right here, you can see Brahmaputra's original flow, and then during the Assam earthquake, the river shifted its course and became this enormous flow of water, which has actually contributed to this idea of land erosion. And again, this Ganges Delta is also a tide-dominated delta, and because of that reason, when there is less current in the river, there is a tendency of the water to go back into the system, which actually creates these sedimentations. So the sedimentation and the erosion, or the accretions and erosions, are quite a phenomena. And while doing our research, we actually focused or looked into how people have moved from one location to another. Because the moment your land goes away, you have to move. And so there are stories of families who has moved from one location to another, like 3-4 times, or even 7-8 times in their own lifetime, because they have to keep on shifting. And when people shift, it's not just one single family, the entire village moves. And the entire village with the bazaars and administration and everything, health facilities, school, everything moves from one location to another. So the land or the place has a completely different kind of an idea when you are in that location. One interesting feature is the architecture or the vernacular that we have in these areas, which is actually a flat pack system. So even before IKEA thought of a flat pack system, the Bangladeshi landscape had it. This is a very simple wooden structure, wooden frame, 2-story, even single story, and then there are facades separate. And so what happens is when people see a crack in the ground and they know that the land will be washed away, they immediately take down their houses and then put it on a cart or a boat and move it to a safer location until they can find a proper place where they can put up the houses again. So this is a very vernacular, flat pack housing system that we have had since 200 years or more. And it has a similar kind of an idea with the Assam houses that you see. And we have markets where you can buy these houses. So you can go and order a house. We could have a 2-story house. Depending on your budget, you can add verandas to them. And they're beautiful, beautifully crafted. You can have wooden facades. You can have corrugated sheet facade, depending on the budget that you have. And so this is one of the markets. So when we did our research for the which was actually about the rights of the future generation, how people actually behave or what happens to the younger generation, how do they cope with this shifting land, and what happens to inheritance, that was our focus. And so we took our research, that is quite an enormous body of work, which I wouldn't be presenting here today, but we bought 3 houses from Dhaka. These are quite close to a place called Munshiganj, and Dohar. These houses are beautifully made and crafted, and they have these markets where you can buy them. So we bought 3 houses, and we took these 3 houses, shipped them to Sharjah, and where 3 of my architects and a carpenter went and reassembled it. So the image on that side is actually the houses in their own location, and here the houses in the location of the venue in Sharjah where we had the triennial happening. So yeah, here you can see the city of Sharjah, and we were given a courtyard in the venue where we put up these 3 houses. So we took 2 single stories and 1.5 story, which is a sort of a mezzanine. And these are beautifully crafted, as you can see, with wooden frames are nicely curved. There are these aspirational, beautiful decorations. We didn't change much, except we did a little bit of interiors where we tried to create a double height space. And all our research was then printed on canvas to showcase what we have done. So during the pandemic, while all the work stopped, we were sitting at home, no office, working remotely, whatever that means, in an architecture office. So we came up with this idea that we met so many of these landless people who move from one chore to another chore because they don't have a place to stay. So they're landless, homeless people. And we thought, can we create something which is a modular, flat pack structure? The houses that I showed you are between $2,000 to $4,000 US. But can we create something which would be like $200 to $300, which we can then make it for the people who can easily carry it? You know, it could be dismantled and carried when they need to move from one place to another. So this is what we came up with. It's a sort of a space frame structure made with bamboo and steel joints on the corners. And the facade could be anything. You could have the roof made out of anything. And the first prototype that we built with the steel joints and bamboo cost us about $250, which now has come to something around $400. So the idea initially was that this could be a group of people moving from one place to another where they can put up these houses. And we created two levels of living space where, if there is flooding, they can always move to the upper level. So this was our intention. And we basically, this is how you go to the coastal areas of Bangladesh, especially in the chores. From Dhaka, you can take a boat, a locally made boat, which you see in the middle, very aerodynamic. Take it from there to, on one night of traveling, to another mainland towards the coastal area. From there, you need to take another boat to go to these chores. And you can see the land formation down there and what it looks in elevation, basically. So these are in the middle of the river where people actually live. And you can see the river. Do you see the river? This is not the river. That's the river over there. So it's that enormous in its size and its scale. And these are chores where we actually worked and made our first houses. So this is one of the houses that we built. This was the first one we built in Dhaka as a prototype. Then we moved to the chore, and this is what we built. And we used basically for the facades the tall grass that is growing in the chores. And so basically using grass as a material. These are the 2 module structures, again, for another family. So you can add on, you can scale up if you like. And so you see the steel joints and the bamboo as a material which is quite easily available in Bangladesh. And so this is a 2-module house, which we again have the same facade made out of tall grass, sourced from the location. Some of the details, so the upper deck, the stair, doors. So the lower level, the way we did it is that you can leave the lower level open. People can use it for daily activity. If they want, they can also close it off and make it a room, however they want. But the upper deck is more for sleeping and staying. And the entire project is done by architects. So the architects go there on site, where there is no electricity, no running water, no toilet facility. They just take their tents and the material and they go there and they work. This is how we've been working. And we've built several houses in many different locations. So that was coastal area. This is more to the northern part or northeastern part of Bangladesh. You can see the Indian border up there in the dark yellow line on the top. And this is an area called Sylhet in Sunamganj. And this area is where you see the Indian line. That's actually where the mountain basically starts. and the line down there is Bangladesh, is absolutely flat land. So all the water during the rainy season comes down, and that's the wetland where the water gets collected, and that's one of what in our language we call it Haur. So this is the Tangoir Haur, and in close to Tangoir Haur, this is Tahirpur, where we did some projects. And in this wetland, basically what people do is they create these long embankment-like areas where they make their houses. So very closely, that's the kind of a finger that you see, which is in many ways man-made. And then people make their houses like in rows, and that's where they generally live. During the dry season, it dries up, so people do farming, mostly rice. And then during the rainy season, it fills up entirely and becomes a lake. And it's a beautiful, scenic lake, generally very popular to tourists, and it's a tourist destination. Otherwise, the people who live here also earns their livings from tourism and fishing, and at the same time from farming during the dry season. So this land has that kind of a capacity. Here you see the Indian mountains at the backdrop, and you see the water. This is more or less the lowest level of the water, and then the water can go up. You can see one of our houses there. So people generally tend to graze the ground, create a mound, and on that they put their houses to keep themselves above the water level. But now at this moment there is flooding going on, so many of these houses, half of it or the lower part of it has been flooded. They've been moving up on the upper deck to sort of go through this phase. The way we work, basically, it's a very community-engaged project. I must say that working with people is one of the most difficult and most you really need time to make them understand, and then slowly, it's a very slow process. I wouldn't say difficult, it's a slow process. You cannot push things onto people. People have to accept it. And that's how we try to work. So we've made these brochures where people understand how this whole thing works. Then going to them, working in a community level where we try to make them understand whether this is a good thing for them or not. They have to accept, and they also have their own understanding about it. And then we do mapping of these areas, we work with models, and then finally the entire community gets together and then decide who should be getting the houses. And so this is the carpenters who then learn how the process works, and then finally a production, as you can see here. Working mostly with architects and students. So they go to the sites and working there, basically trying to bring up the structures. The bamboos are locally sourced. The steel joints are something we are still making from Dhaka and sending it. But we've been working with a UK-based structural firm who has come up with some of these 3D printed interesting forms, which we can then again bring it to Dhaka, Bangladesh, and make it in structural concrete. So we are working on developing different kind of ways that this can really work. And this here, you see how the entire thing is being built on site. So I'm just going to go very fast. So you'll see a lot of these houses being dotted all around these areas. We've so far built 15 houses in these areas, which so far has worked quite well. So this is the upper deck where you can see how people sleep, and the team enjoying a dinner in one of the houses. This map that you see here is actually one of the largest and the densest concentration of human population, and that is in the southern or the eastern part of Bangladesh, close to the Myanmar border, home to 1 million, not really home, but let's say in a transition, to 1 million forcefully displaced Myanmar nationals who are living in this area called Ukhia in Cox's Bazar, popularly known as the Rohingya refugees. Bangladesh has not given them the status of refugees. They are known as the forcefully displaced Myanmar nationals. So it's a kind of a transitional space that they are occupying in Bangladesh. So this area where the refugees are placed used to be one of the largest green areas or the forest areas. You can see in 2002, the position of the land, in 2015, and then slowly in 2017, when this exodus of refugees were coming in and then occupying this space, all the trees were cut down to make space for the refugees. Roads were built to be able to bring in all the logistic supports that's needed. And what has happened is that it has created a lot of these land erosions during the monsoon season. So you see a lot of land erosion that happens in these areas. So one of the projects that we did in 2001 is working in the refugee camps, where we worked in reforestation. So we have a native list of native plants, and the reforestation required us to work in a way that we worked with refugees. So basically creating a community engagement again, working with them, trying to make them understand, because they're the ones who are occupying that space. If they do not look after the plants that are being planted, it will never work. So it's a sort of a co-creation process where the nature is helped to regrow. And so we did a lot of different kind of process, which is still ongoing. We did bamboo nailing, so we took live bamboo, we nailed it to get this bamboo regrow into the earth so that it can hold the soil. We have created these seed bombs or mud ball methods where we have the seeds and then we throw it in the places where it's not possible to physically go. We have also taken forest floor from the surrounding forest areas. We have beautiful gorgon trees, and so from the forest floor, taking some of these forest areas and then to take it and place it there to let it regrow itself. So we have landscape architects working with us, Hasibul Kobir, who actually does all these works. And while this is, again, that same area, right outside the refugee camps, where we have this forest, as you can see. And we built a small house for ourselves to stay right next to the refugee camps. And this house is, again, the same technique that we generally give to the people in the chores and for the landless people. It's the same modular structure. We built for ourselves to go and stay there. So the entire team, when they go and work in the refugee camps, they basically go and stay in the houses. The upper deck is actually for us to sleep, and the lower place is where the boys and the girls go and work and stay during these times, because the project requires a lot of community engagement. So that's our team who's working in the camps. We have landscape architect, we have community architects, we have hands-on builder architects. So architects have taken on many different roles and are working together. So this is, again, inside the refugee camp. We are not allowed to show photographs of refugee camps, so I'm not going to be showing much. But so this is also, again, the community engagement that we generally do. We are working with World Food Program and UNFPA, designing women-friendly centers, women-led community centers. And we are also, so it's, again, the same process where we do a community engagement with refugee girls, especially these are for women. And so we work with them the first connection with them is through drawings and trying to make a program, their aspiration, learning about their aspiration, what they really want from the projects and everything. And then they present their drawings, so they actually understand how an architect works. And that really helps us to create the program. And so it's through community initiatives. We have worked with the refugees, and also these are host community. Bangladeshis who are living surrounding the refugee camps are called the host communities because they're hosting the guests who are there in the land. And so what happened is the Bangladeshis who live in that area also got, their livelihood became disrupted because of this flow of refugees. They had land where they used to cultivate. The farmers lost their land, and so there is a pressure from the government to the donor agencies and the UN that they need to look after the livelihood. And so a lot of women farmers have developed in these areas, and so we also were designing aggregation centers for the women who actually are farmers. And so these are women farmers, so we actually worked with them to develop the programs and to build something. And we also have these local builders and carpenters with whom we also have these engagement in hands-on building workshops, so they understand the process that we are building with. The only material that we are allowed to use in these areas are bamboo or anything which is impermanent. So you cannot build anything permanent. So the only material is bamboo and tarpaulin sheets or thatch, something that you can take down. And quite often the brief always tells you do not make it attractive. So that's how it works. So in a way, we found that this same technique of using bamboo and the steel joints really helped us. So we again created these two-story bamboo structures, which are sturdy, and this is one of the aggregation centers in Teknaf, where you see the local material and using bamboo and something absolutely temporary. We try to make it as non-attractive as possible. With the lower side is actually, the lower level is where the women bring their fresh produce and they sell it, and the upper part is only for the women to enjoy themselves. So here you see the women farmers bringing in their produce, fresh produce, and selling it. They also sell it to the refugee camps, where the World Food Program generally does the food distribution, so there is fresh food corner where they also sell their produce. So here it is. The upper level, where women generally spend their time. And so, it's a local, very vernacular material that we're using, but we try to make as much possible whatever quality of space that we can actually give. So those are two of the more intensely done from 2020 and 2021 projects that I showed you. Very quickly going through my I think most of people have seen these projects, but then again, those who do not know, probably for them, about the climate and how we try to address climate in the cities when we are working. So tropical goes through Bangladesh, as you can see. It's a subtropical climate where we have half of the year wet season and half of the year more or less dry. Temperature is not as here in Rajasthan, so we have a moderate temperature, more or less. Humidity, but at the same time, if you can ensure airflow, it can be livable and breathable. So basically what you need is a roof to cover yourself from the elements, the sun and the rain, and raise yourself a little bit above the ground to keep yourself above the water level, and then you're free. You're happy and good to go. And that's what you need as an architecture. So primordial architecture is just a pavilion. And as you can see here in the image of the Bangla Ragini. And this is our first modern architecture designed by Mazhar al-Islam in 1953. I think it actually set the tone of what architecture should be like in terms of contemporary architecture. And I think this is one of the most unique examples that we have, and really created a base for us to build upon. Many of our older projects also address this idea of blurring the boundary, where your inside and outside is basically an open space. You can use it as you require. The facades can open or close, depending on the climate that you're facing at that time. Trying to address nature in buildings, so creating courtyards to ensure the draft of air. So airflow is an absolute necessity because of our humidity. So for that reason, we need to keep it constantly ventilated. And in most of our projects, we try to do it in a passive manner rather than addressing it otherwise. So when you do passive, the stacks quite often help, the stack effect. So creating high volume that actually ensures the airflow. Working with the facades, so you can open up the facades in a way that it allows airflow to happen in a high-rise, let's say a 12-story residential building that we built, which you can see here. Also, again, working with these old techniques, and I really look and try to investigate what we had, the pre-air conditioning era. No offense to our air conditioning guys before me. Really, we do need that. But there are times in the year where you can do without air conditioning. So there needs to be balance. And to create that balance, we should also remember how we lived in the pre-air conditioning era, when it was a breathable space. And so we have these buffers like long verandas that you see in our context. I don't know what it was here. It was most probably working with water and also courtyards, trying to bring shade. And in our case, it was about creating these buffers, which would then help to condition the air that goes into the buildings. So we try to work with several ideas where you can have these verandas surrounding the building and then to create that buffer. And these are techniques you can still bring back in a contemporary way. As I was mentioning about the stack effect, we've also tried to create atriums in buildings, which actually helps to create that breathability. This was one of our buildings that we designed and won a prize, but never got built. Again, a central court and the corner courts in a 9-square grid plan, where it also works the same way, creating pavilion-like spaces on the upper deck so that you can have a much more natural way of staying. So as you can see, brick is our material. I mean, we have two materials, mud and brick. We don't have any stones. We don't have the luxury of stones. So when people, especially vernacular, or let's say architecture by people, has always been with mud in most of the cases. And when you needed something more permanent, especially architecture of power, be it religious, cultural, economic, or political, it was always with brick. So here you can see the monastery, one of our monasteries, Buddhist monasteries, which of course took earth, baked it as brick, and then used it. We have beautiful terracotta architecture, Hindu temples, as you can see. So you can really make magic with earth, if you like. And we have really good brick masons in Bangladesh, especially coming from the northern part of the country. So Dhaka is a fast-growing city. It is one of the fastest growing. We have 20 million people living in the city. It's moving beyond the waterways and what was actually bounding the city in the north and the south. And so, as you can see, like many other cities in our subcontinent, let's say, we also have the same kind of two different life surviving, coexisting in many ways together. One cannot do without the other, so it's there. So I do not see this as formal or informal. They both need to exist for our own sake. And so the density is enormous, one of the highest densities. I'll go very fast through this project just to show you that when we have so less open space, how we tried to tackle it when we were given a project to do a museum, which was one of our first projects in my first partnership in Arbana with my partner Kashif Chaudhry that we designed. We won this competition and we designed this project. This is one of the last remaining, what happened? Do you think it's the connection here? Okay. Get some water by that time. I'll go very quickly just to show the mosque, and then I'll try to finish it. Yeah, sure. Any questions up till now? Yes. Yeah. The water has too much current. There's too much current in the water. That would not work. Sorry. Yes.
The kind of housing you have created, I think it's wonderful,
Thank you so much.
In the category of affordable housing, has that housing been accepted as a part of government, options for creating, housing those poor people?
Yeah, our Prime Minister has one project called the Asrayan Prokolpo, So where she donates houses through her own initiative. We have talked to them, they've seen the structures. I think, through that, what happens is that they just go and build it for people without the real connection and understanding what people need. So at this moment, I think we are still in a very early stage, I would say. We are focusing on very different locations. As I was saying, that we have different kind of water situations. One, I showed the coastal areas where we have this movement, the dynamics of the rivers. Then you see how the water coming from the hills covers it and creates flood. We also have another really difficult situation, which is when the barrages like the Tista and the Farakka opens up, and then all of a sudden we are flooded with this water coming from India. So there are many different situations which we need to address, and we are addressing them. And the Prime Minister's office and also the local government is all aware of it. So hopefully in a good time, the idea for me is to create an integration into the and if you accept it, you don't need other sources. I think it's affordable. People can build it themselves. The idea is actually, the Grameen Bank housing. They used to give the 4 columns and a tin. That is not really feasible anymore. We wanted to go and look into this idea of how you can make it a little bit more structurally sound, giving 2 levels where you can really use the upper deck when there is flooding. You don't need to move away. Or if you need to move, there is a possibility of dismantling. So a lot of issues is being addressed, and hopefully the Prime Minister's office and we keep them informed all the time, whatever we are doing.
In fact, when we're looking at the housing, there are 2 major issues. One is the land,
Yes.
Other are the services.
Absolutely.
You are shifting people from one area to another.
That's
how you manage the, land ownership, that's one category.
There's no land ownership.
There's no land ownership.
No.
Okay.
I mean, especially for the people we are targeting, they don't have any land to live in.
But you are
so they move from these chores to chores, this sandbed to sandbed. So, I cannot insure land. Nobody can.
No, I can. But how you manage the services, and the community living?
Service is basically toilet facilities. So we have toilets that we make for them. So there are different ways of making the toilets. I didn't go into the detail, but we have some toilet facilities. I'll go very quickly.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Since the tech is up, we'll continue this later. Yeah, thank you.
Very quickly, this is a museum we designed in the park, which is one of the last rare green parks that we have left. The reason being, this is a very historically also important place. That park, which is known as the Sohrawardi Udyan, used to be the horse racing ground during the British colonial time. Before that, it was a Mughal garden. And then in 1971, right before the liberation war, our father of the nation, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, gave a very important speech, which actually triggered the entire idea of becoming a free nation and a sovereign nation. That happened. And then in December 1971, the same year, the Pakistani armed forces surrendered to the allied force of India and Bangladesh. So this is the ground which is historically quite an eventful and important ground. And so that's where we built this museum. And the museum was taken below grade to retain a park-like atmosphere, as you can see, without obstructing the view. And so it was kind of kept open. On the plaza, we have a few elements that commemorates the war and our independence. So you enter from the other side, and there are some little elements culminating at the Tower of Independence. So this in section, very simply, the plaza, and we have the tower at the end, and you can see a little hole, which actually the water body, and the lower ground below grade is the museum. So, so these are the different elements. Our idea was that there is a duality in Bangladesh's independence, which is it did not just gain independence, it was through a bloody 9-month-long war. And so this duality, which is about freedom and also loss and struggle, had to be brought together. So freedom, dream, aspiration has a preferred direction, which is upwards. Anything that relates to infinite generally takes an upward leap. And sadness, loss, is always going towards the subterranean, or, we try to keep it within ourselves. So it was embedded into the earth. So that was the idea we had. So that's the Tower of Light, as we call it, made out of glass and space frame structure. There is this circular pool with a hole in the middle that draws in the water in the middle. That's the plan of the museum. As you can see, you're coming down with a ramp. There's an audiovisual room, and then you go through the museum and then going up through the ramp. It's a very simple idea. So the ramp bringing people down, and then you see the exhibits basically printed on glass, the idea and the history of the war, and also the birth of Bangladesh and Bengal as a nation is all there. And then slowly you go into this dark space where we have the images of the genocide and killing, and then from there you enter into that space where the water is drawing down, so it's a kind of a water column which has an oculus, and then the light is coming through this oculus, making it a very contemplative space, very spiritual in many ways. And so you can spend a little moment remembering the people and the loss of lives that we've had. And then again, you go up, and then you face the monument, or the Tower of Light, as we call it. It's a space frame structure in the middle, and we have glass stacked, and it's stacked of glass to create that prismatic effect where you can see here. So the glasses are not like sheet glass, the glass is stacked on top of another, create a panel, and the panel is then stuck to the space frame. So it is not taking any load, so the tower can sway as much as it's needed, because we get really big thunderstorms in our land, and earthquakes, hailstorms, you name it, we have. So basically, our Tower of Light and our Independence Monument, it's lit in the evening with light from the outside, so you get that very glowing effect without the structure being shown. And in the evening, it's a kind of a beacon of light, as you can see. I'll finish with my mosque projects very quickly. I know we are running out of time, but the blue dot that you see up in the map, that's the end of the city of Dhaka, right above, right close to the river Turag, that actually denotes the end of the city of Dhaka. And that's where the mosque project is. The land actually used to be a farmland, as far as I can remember from my childhood memory, because my grandmother owned some part of the land. And then slowly it became a settlement because of the fringe of Dhaka city. And so it started growing and transforming. My grandmother, and she donated a piece of her land for the mosque. And she basically, she was the client for me, so she commissioned me for the project and asked me to design it very formally. And so I took the project as an architect, and so kind of worked on it. This is the first prayer that we had, and you can see my grandmother sitting there right across the haystack, in front of the haystack. So this is in September 2006, and in 2006 she passed away. And so for that reason it became kind of a promise that I made to her. I had to finish the project, so that's how it all began. So basically the way the project is designed is I had to, you know, in Bangladesh, especially when we grew up, the women did not go to mosques. So my memory of going to a mosque was almost none. And so, so it was, in a way, I think that was liberating, because I didn't have those, you know, what you generally have in terms of rituals and all that. So I could see it from a completely, you know, I needed to understand, I needed to learn what a mosque is. And I thought the best way to do it would be to go back to the very beginning and to find out why mosque came into being. And if you look into the history of Islam and how the whole idea of the mosque came in, it was during the Prophet's time, and the Prophet actually created this idea where he wanted to create a congregation space for prayers. And not only during his time, when the mosque was built, not only was it used as a space for prayer, but also all kinds of different activities like social, communal, judicial, administrative diplomatic, all kinds of activities used to take place in the mosque. So it was not only for prayer. So that's one interesting revelation. The other thing was that it was actually born out of a house form, and the same technique that was generally in the Arabian Peninsula, the way of the construction with date palm tree, and it was the same way this was being constructed, elongated to make space for congregation. So initially, there was no liturgical elements like domes and minarets that we generally associate mosques with. So basically, as mosques grew, as Islam grew and mosques flourished around the world, to the east and the west of Arabian Peninsula, the mosque actually took up many different forms. And as it went to different locations, you can see the difference in its creation. It adapted to the local customs, local material, local culture, climate. And so you see all different kinds of mosques around the world. And in our own location, the first mosques came into being during the pre-Mughal time, during the Sultanate period, where we have these beautiful, authentic mosque forms. And I thought that we need to create that connection back, because this is what our mosques look like these days. Stacks of floors, there is no sense of being in a space which really evokes a sense of spirituality. And so this is what has happened to our symbols, which is how necessary are these. That's something we need to question. So I thought, spirituality or the light, which is something that gives you that feeling of connection with God, should be the focus. And these are some of the spaces I really admire, and I find it inspirational. The Hagia Sophia and the mosque in Cordoba, the infiniteness, the light. And so from there, the entire inspiration was drawn. First sketch of the mosque, the area which is where the mosque is located, the site had a certain angle, and the Muslims pray in a certain direction. So to acquire that direction, which is about 12 degrees according to the site, the prayer hall had to be shifted 12 degrees. And to facilitate that shift, as you can see, the gradual change, where I introduced a drum, and that drum actually helped me to rotate without really creating any corners. And the corners then became the light wells. As I was saying, that we need air to flow, and the draft of air is important for us. We need to keep it flowing, and to some extent taking the language from what we have in our architecture. And here you have so much rich architecture. This is what we have, ours, which is also enormously rich. And so taking that and in a way to translate that in a contemporary manner, where I tried to create this surrounding entirely with brick, and keeping the central prayer hall only in concrete. Also, because I had a fund shortage, I had to allocate the fund in a way that my grandmother left some fund, but then I had to raise fund to complete the project. So I kept the entire structure brick. It helped me with the budget, keeping concrete only to the middle. So that's the plan. As you can see, you can enter from the southern side with a colonnade, and then you take a few bends to enter into the main mosque area, so that it kind of conditions your brain towards, converging it towards the act of praying. And the facade is, again, very perforated. I love this jali that you can see in the Sidi Said Mosque in Ahmedabad. Beautiful jali work, and then, with brick, whatever we could achieve. So that's the surrounding. As you can see, it's a growing area where constantly new buildings are coming up. So at some point, this mosque will not be visible anymore. So the facades and what you see from the outside doesn't really make much of a difference. It's about looking within and looking without. So that's the mosque. I'll just go very quickly. You can see the corner courtyards and the turrets coming out, which actually takes in the light inside. The perforated facade, which is, again, the breathing facade, helps the building to breathe. The colonnade, through the entrance, and then the prayer hall when you enter from the sides. So there is a lot of interesting play of light during the daytime. Summer months are different than the winter months as the sun moves. So the sun plays a lot of interesting play. As we didn't have much funding for any kind of embellishment, light became our ornament. And it really creates a kind of an interesting atmosphere throughout the day and throughout the year. So, so that's basically that. The corner court that opens to the toilet facilities. And so very, very simple, basic, elemental building, because not only because we didn't have one, but also I wanted to keep it as simple as possible, as humble as possible in many ways. Another small project, another mosque, which is up close to well, I was actually commissioned by architect Dr. Abu Said for this project. He has designed, or actually conserve, or the restoration of one of the small houses, which is that house that you can see over there in a place called Alfadanga in Faridpur. And that's a mosque which is right outside the main house campus. And he basically wanted me to design the mosque, keeping the idea of the house to some extent. I thought, you know, there should be a certain kind of a language between the mosque and the house. And so that's the mosque outside, and that's the house that he actually restored. Yesterday he was showing some images of that in the session. And there is a pond, which is a nice ghat to it. And that's the mosque that at the moment going into, it's still at the finishing stage. So that's the mosque that we designed entirely in brick, has no columns, absolutely column-free. So the entire structure is bearing. And it has these angular openings that really brings in light. This is what we are expecting, hopefully. We have the roof cast, so this is the light that's coming in. So far, that's what we have. Okay, I think I'll finish here because I can go on forever. So thank you so much. It would be nice to have a conversation rather than showing anymore. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so very much, Architect Marina Tabassum, for this wonderful, wonderful presentation. I loved it best when she said we did make it as unattractive as possible. And presented to what, in my eye, was one of the most attractive structures would have seen. So thank you so very much for this. It was amazing.
Thank you.
And since we are running a little short of time, I'll be able to take only 2 questions, and that'll be by Marina's choice. So I request you to raise your hand and hope you hit the lead draw. So if there's any questions, please raise your hand, and I'll ask Marina to take those questions for you. Or would you like to converse with her informally at lunch?
Yeah,
or
I
tea?
think when we have lunch, we